words and speak on this topic. And there will be a lot of overlap with my fellow speakers in terms of slide content and video. But then, do we know of anything called a simple diabetic vitreous hemorrhage? We don't. So it's an entity which, after doing the hemorrhage, we find several pathologies underlying the hemorrhage, which we have to deal with as we move along. So I'll just put a few slides before I go on to the video. Now, as we all know, that in proliferative diabetic retinopathy, due to the stimulus of ischemia and the resultant activation of vessels and the microangiopathy that occurs, there is abnormal vessel growth which leads to vitreous hemorrhage, which can be intrajail and subhyalite. So now, as Dr. Tushar mentioned, over the years we have come to the conclusion that these are the main indications of surgery. So I will be dealing with vitreous hemorrhage as the main indication here. And that's my topic is. Now vitreous hemorrhage can be, as I said, intrajail or intramacular, and it is now, as Dr. Tushar said, is broadly accepted. Leaving a vitreous hemorrhage in situ while retinopathy may continue unobserved is unacceptable, because we have become very aggressive in our approach with early vitrectomy in a non-clearing vitreous hemorrhage, which also serves, not only serves to clear the media, but also observation and stabilizes the retinopathy as well, once the scaffold is removed. Now with improved surgical techniques, the results of vitrectomy have, compared to DRBS, has improved considerably, indicating 87% in one of the studies, showing improvement by at least 3 ETDRS lines at 12 months, which include both type 1 and type 2. Now, as I said, not only type 1 as was mirrored in as was stated in the DRBS, but type 2 patients can also be treated earlier than, because of the better instrumentation, adjuvantly, paraoperative endolaser, which was not there in the DRBS studies, and a lot of laser before the hemorrhage sets in. Now, while waiting, it's absolutely imperative to do a periodic ultrasound examination, not only to merely detect the presence of detachment, which can be fractional or combined, and also thorough clinical biomicroscopy examination to detect neovascularization, which makes it even earlier to go for surgery. So, ultrasound D-scan, I would like to stress upon a few points here before we go the surgical aspects per se. That the ultrasound not only detects the presence of RD, but also helps us to plan the surgical approach and tells us gives information regarding vitreous schisis, which is an element, as you can see, both the arrows pertaining to the anterior and posterior walls of the schisis. It's very, it's imperative to deal with the posterior layer of the vitreous schisis and not to leave that alone, because that's the scaffold on which the reproliferation will take place. Ultrasound also shows the traction RDs and the tabletop. Now, few words about dense premacular hemorrhage. There is a progressive fibrovascular proliferation involving the cortical vitreous gel and the posterior hyaloid phase, which gives rise to subsequent macular traction and ectopia. So it has to be treated very early. Few examples of the dense premacular hemorrhage. There is, in early cases, we can also attempt YAG laser hyalurectomy. Sometimes it helps. But one small point with YAG laser is that I have seen few cases in which, as opposed to other cases of submacular hemorrhage, premacular hemorrhage, where there is an immediate release of blood into the, which drops down into the inferior part of the vitreous cavity. Here, there is a case for waiting for 2 weeks. In fact, I saw a case in which I waited for 2 weeks, and then it was planned for a surgery, and lo and behold, on the day of surgery, when we are examining, it is cleared. So just a point I wanted to make. So this is the system that I use at this site with all the other gadgets. The surgical goals, as in any diabetic case, would be the removal of the hemorrhage, excision of the posterior hyaloid and epithelial vascular membranes, retinal attachment if there is an RD and endolaser with the tamponading agent. So these are the good prognostic factors, and these are the poor prognostic factors. And one or two words about Avastin, as has been mentioned already. We also use Avastin now routinely within 3 to 4 days because it facilitates, reduces pre-op neovascularization, facilitates membrane removal, and reduces intra-op and post-op bleeding. Now, just going to the technique before the video comes along. The posterior face, highlight face is identified first, and an opening is created and is extended circumferentially so as to release all the attachment with the base and the membranes, the vascular membrane overlying the retina. Sometimes the retrohemorrhage, as I was showing the video, if it's a recent hemorrhage, there is a sudden gush of this retrohemorrhage blood which fills the entire cavity, and in the other cases you can have a much clearer view. So it is imperative to release any traction on the retina by existing membranes, which is almost always vascularized. So just to overemphasize the same point was mentioned, peeling is not to be advocated, as in the other PVR cases. So because it might result in severe hemorrhage or tearing of the retina. So standard techniques would involve segmentation, delamination, en bloc, and biomineral dissection techniques. One tricky situation before I go to the video is that sometimes we find a very sticky hemorrhage in the anterivitreous gel adherent to the posterior lens capsule. So one technique which has been advocated, tried few times, sometimes successfully and other times not. Injection of BSS into the anterior chamber to hydrodissect the anterior highlight phase on the posterior capsule with a very slow rate of injection. Anyway, now one complication that has to be taken care of or maybe preventable at the time of the initial surgery is POVH, post-operative, which is found in 30%, which not be early, it will be late, depending on the etiology. Hence, to follow Abbott's advocate, these obstacles to successful vitrectomy should be best managed by prevention rather than subsequent treatment. Appropriate management at initial vitrectomy will reduce the incidence of these complications. So these are the few measures we can take to prevent. One small mention, just going on and touching the few salient points which have to be highlighted. Hence the what was referred to as the vitreous base after the advent of the endoscopy-assisted vitrectomies. What we were dealing with actually the posterior part of the vitreous base. Anterior vitreous base is still left alone. So these are the two techniques. Few techniques that has been shown in the earlier videos: fold back delamination and conformal cutter delaminations. And as was mentioned, there is a small instrument which has been devised which can be used for dye-assisted viscodelamination. Very careful because it's very easy to put too much pressure and create tears while you injecting this. Compression is involving the peripapillary area. So after creating the opening in the retrovirus, DHF, we go around and then try to concentrate on the membrane peeling. Some vacuum cleaning can be done by age-old Charles cannula, removing blood, and the same cannula sometimes can be used to determine the correct plane of approach, which is very important before we go in with the cutter. So now we go in with the cutter. And wherever we found a cleavage, we go in, not to leave the vascular receptors alone. And as soon as you clear everything, we will find that there is a bleed from the disc, which is sometimes tricky. Disc bleeding is difficult to manage sometimes. Here you see the bleed from the disc. Put some TFCL, there is a bottle light, the measures that are usually treated and practiced, as would be in this case also. New fluid exchange, waiting, lowering the pressure, and waiting. We have to wait for a few minutes to be satisfied, but still there would be rebleeds, I am sure. This is another case with a big premature hemorrhage with a lot of fibrovascular tissue over in this. We used transdermal to stain in this case, like the vitreous and attachments. Now there is the hole I was talking about to creating the PHF. So once the thing is done circumferentially, there will be no more pull. While you are dealing with the central membranes, you will not be tugging onto the vitreous base. This is critical. So PFCL, as some viscoelastics also, creates the plane that was being discussed. So which is a safer thing to use. You can actually peel off the tissue, all the tissue from the surface of the retina. That is imperative, right? The use of preoperative adjuncts like bevacizumab also helps to peel off all the tissue, so that there is no later reproliferation and repeat. Vitreous base is given attention to once the central tissue is cleared with depression and that's in the vitreous base. Of course, the posterior part of the vitreous base. Just meticulous cleanup of the vitreous base essential. Now, some other instrumentation is shown: illuminated forceps with segmentation of illuminated forceps and scissor, vertical scissor bimanually with the chandelier illumination on, which is a routine human practice. That's the role of early surgery means you very easy to peel off all the fibroblastic tissue from the surface, even from over the disc. Another case in which we have tried to create an opening. See, a recent case, not much laser into it previously, so there is a huge filling of the vitreous cavity becomes hazy suddenly. Then you wait for some time, raise the bottle height. Except you don't raise the bottle height when you are using constellation, but see, the bleed we identified as from the disc and peeling it off from the surface of the disc, the proliferative tissue. Wait for some time, blow the bottle height. This is the thing which I usually add, from the cannula, go around the cannula and clear the. This is a case of full thickness macular hole in a case of diabetes with a taut posterior highlight phase is being peeled off. So usually this was the posterior edge of the vitreous crisis, which is critical. You have to identify the posterior edge, posterior layer of the vitreous crisis. Stain with BBG and peeling the iron. Standard techniques. As in idiopathic macular hole, another small point still is sticky. Iron is still sticky. It doesn't peel off that easy. So fragmentation, piecemeal peeling is what is experienced here. Sometimes you have to go back into. Here, forceps and cutter combination is being shown by manually. Very easy to lift with forceps and identify the correct plane of fluid. This is being, as was mentioned earlier, cutter can be used as a scissor. You can see there is a TRD and there is an iatrogenic break also which has been created. The rest of the membrane is being peeled. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Guho.